A very good morning. Welcome to another edition of Breakfast News. Over the next 60 minutes is a power-packed morning that we have put together for you, where we get you all the latest from the field of politics, business, sports and entertainment. As you sip your morning tea and coffee, we cut all the noise, bring you news as it happens, because we are a billion voices of India and get you all the news as it unfolds. I'm Anil Thomas to take you through this morning. My co-anchor Samriddhi Goyal. Good morning, Samriddhi.
Well, good morning, Anil. And like Anil said, over the next 60 minutes, we bring you all the updates, all that's making headlines from across the globe. We get you the latest from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. We get you the latest on the climate change, which is wreaking havoc across the globe, with floods hitting India and the United States. And there have also been some incidents of shooting in the US. We get you that. And Manchester United fans rejoicing as they win over Liverpool in the Premier League. That and more over the next 60 minutes. Let's first take a look at the top stories at this hour.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will take part in the SCO Defence Ministers Meet being held in Tashkent in Uzbekistan. He will hold bilateral meeting with Uzbekistan's Defence Minister Lieutenant General Nizamovic and also interact with the Indian community.
External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, on his visit to the South American region, addresses business gathering at the Industrial Union of Paraguay, says trade and investment will be the focus of our bilateral activities, and invites Paraguayan business to explore opportunities in India.
Germany seeks an alternative source of energy to help replace Russian gas imports. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz meets Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Montreal. Scholz and Trudeau are set to sign a deal for Canada to supply hydrogen to Germany.
At least 20 people killed in flash floods in central Afghanistan, with heavy rain destroying thousands of homes and damaging agricultural land. Taliban government calls for assistance from international community.
Met Department issues alert for heavy rain in Madhya Pradesh. Heavy rains disrupt power in many areas of the state. Schools closed in several districts. Incessant rain causes major loss to life and property in many parts of Himachal Pradesh. Rains also lash parts of Rajasthan.
In cricket, India beat Zimbabwe by 13 runs in the third ODI for series sweep. Chasing a target of 290, Zimbabwe batsman could only reach 276. For his stupendous knock of 130, Shubman Gill adjudged the player of the match.
Well, those are the top stories. Now for the stories in detail, starting first up with the Defence Ministers Meet that's going to take place in Uzbekistan. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will be travelling to Uzbekistan today to take part in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defence Ministers Meet being held at Tashkent. This follows the meeting of the Security Council secretaries of the SCO member states held last week. During his 3-day visit, Rajnath Singh will hold bilateral meetings with Uzbekistan's Defence Minister Lieutenant General Nizamovic and also interact with the Indian community. The SCO is a precursor to the SCO summit scheduled for next month, which is likely to be attended by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The summit is scheduled for September 15th and 16th in Samarkand, and the SCO meeting is expected to deliberate on regional security challenges, including the situation in Ukraine and Afghanistan. The SCO is an influential economic and security bloc and has emerged as one of the largest trans-regional international organizations. India has shown a key interest in deepening its security-related cooperation with the SCO and the regional anti-terrorism structure, which specifically deals with issues related to security and defense. Well, let's now try and understand the SCO summit and what it means. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will be travelling to Uzbekistan capital Tashkent on 23rd, that's today, to attend a defence ministerial conclave of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or SCO. This meeting is expected to take place on the 24th of August. Chinese Defence Minister General Wei Fenghe and Russian Defence Minister Sergei Shoigu are also expected to attend the SCO meet, apart from their counterparts from other nations or member nations of the grouping. The member countries include Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, India, Russia, China and Pakistan, and there are observer countries which include Iran, Belarus, Mongolia, Afghanistan, and countries including Armenia, Azerbaijan, Nepal, Turkey, Cambodia and Sri Lanka, who are dialogue partners in this particular meet. The SCO Defence Ministerial meeting is taking place around 3 weeks ahead of the annual summit of the influential grouping. The summit is scheduled for 15th and 16th of September in Samarkand. The SCO meeting is expected to deliberate on regional security challenges, including the situation in Ukraine and Afghanistan. And the SCO is an influential economic and security bloc and has emerged as one of the largest trans-regional international organizations. India and Pakistan became the permanent members in 2017, and the SCO was founded at a summit in Shanghai in 2001 by the presidents of Russia, China, the Kyrgyz Republic, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. India has shown a keen interest in deepening its security-related cooperation with the SCO and its regional anti-terrorism structure, that's RATS, which specifically deals with issues related to security and defense. The SCO summit, the summit takes place next month in Uzbekistan as it holds the presidency of SCO, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to attend the meeting. In 2023, India will take over the presidency of SCO and all other major events related to the grouping will take place in India.
And now let's go across to our correspondent Nandita, who's joining us on the phone line with the latest on the Raksha Mantris visit to Uzbekistan today. Good morning, Nandita. Bring us up to speed with the Raksha Mantris schedule. We all know he's traveling to Uzbekistan. What could be on the agenda when he meets the Defence Minister of Uzbekistan?
Good morning, Samriti. Actually, as of now, we have confirmation of only his bilateral meeting with the Uzbeki defense minister. But since this is a defense minister conclave of the SCO, he will be meeting other defense ministers in other Central Asian countries, and of course, laying the groundwork for Prime Minister Modi's visit, if it, which is likely to happen next month. Also, it is key to note that the Pakistani and Chinese defense ministers are also attending this SCO meet, and we have had 16 round of core commander level talks with the Chinese, but have had which have resulted in disengagement at several points, except for two places, the Depsang as well as this petrol point 15. So that is happening, and we do not know whether he will be meeting Wei Fenghe. It is the Chinese defense minister, Mr. Wei Fenghe. We do not know whether he will meet him on the sidelines or whether he will be talking to. But it's important to note that it was only during the SCO meet in 2020 that Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar met his counterpart, as well as Defence Mr. Wang Yi, and the Defence Minister Mr. Rajnath Singh met his counterpart Wei Fenghe, and they did have a substantial long conversations, and this contributed to the resumption of this core commander level talks after the standoff and tensions of 2020. Also, since Afghanistan is it's already going to be 1 year since Kabul fell. 1 year since Kabul fell, and the situation in Afghanistan, considering the poverty and the India's significant stake in Afghanistan with humanitarian assistance and infrastructure building that is continuing, and also India has tentatively taken some steps to actually engage with the Taliban government, although we do not still have formal ties. So that India will be discussing that with the Central Asian republics, because this is India is a neighbor to that, as well as the Central Asian countries. A lot of Uzbeki population in Afghanistan. There are ethnic Uzbekis in Afghanistan. Russia and China are significant because Russia and China both have established formal diplomatic ties with Afghanistan Taliban government, and they have constantly been engaging with them even before the Talibanis took over Kabul. So these are the issues. Apart from that, the situation in Ukraine, which India has on several occasions at the highest level through Prime Minister Modi, have also urged that the 5 points that Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar have listed several times, but Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will definitely be discussing with the Central Asian countries because they are part of the former Soviet Union.
Also considering the fact, Nandita, at least lay threadbare to us, the likelihood of India especially, Indian Defence Minister meeting with his Uzbekistan counterpart and talking about, especially when it comes to, India's role in helping Uzbekistan, especially in this crisis, because India is friendly with both Uzbekistan as well as Russia when it comes to the issue that these two nations are facing. So do you see a likelihood of that happening?
India has good ties with several Uzbeki, India has very good relations with several former Soviet Union countries, including Uzbekistan, and India and Uzbekistan regularly hold joint military exercises called Dustlik. Also, there are several military cooperation capacity building. There are defense exchanges where staff level talks happen between India and Uzbekistan. There is this year itself a third India-Uzbeki joint military exercise began. So India is a key partner as far as building capacity building and actually training the Uzbekis in special forces is concerned. They hold joint anti-terror exercises, counter-terrorism exercises, the third edition of which was held this year. So these staff level talks as well as capacity building of the Uzbeki military will prominently feature between the defense minister and his counterpart talks this SCO.
One quick word: terrorism and the spread of fundamentalism, two issues that have especially hit SCO member countries. In that context, do you see any kind of dialogue, any kind of deliberation take place?
Yes, definitely, because as I said earlier, there is a significantly Uzbeki ethnic population in Afghanistan, and all these Central Asian countries, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, they all neighbor Afghanistan, where there could be a spillover. And we have seen that since the Taliban government has come into power in Afghanistan, there is a genuine fear within the SCOs, within the Central Asian republics and these former Soviet Union republics, that there could be a spillover of terrorism from these areas, and that is why India and Uzbekistan cooperating on counter-terrorism, counter-insurgency is very key.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this morning on Breakfast News, bringing us bringing us an update on the developments that are likely to take place in the SCO Defence Ministers Summit, which comes 3 weeks ahead of the SCO Summit.
Right, and now shifting focus to the External Affairs Ministers Dr. S. Jaishankar's visit, stressing that trade and investment will be the focus of bilateral activities between India and Paraguay. Now, addressing a business gathering at the Industrial Union of Paraguay, the minister said that the establishment of a resident Indian embassy will spur an expansion of our economic engagement. Paraguay Minister of Commerce and Industry Luis Alberto Castiglione also joined Dr. Jaishankar at the event. Jaishankar invited Paraguayan business to explore opportunities in India while expressing confidence that the Indian businesses will be equally active in Paraguay. Earlier, the External Affairs Minister met President of Paraguay, Marito Abdo, conveying the personal greetings of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Dr. Jaishankar appreciated President Abdo's guidance on further advancing our bilateral relationship and global partnership. Earlier in Paraguay, Dr. Jaishankar was warmly welcomed by his Paraguay counterpart Julio Cesar Arriola in Asuncion, and both the leaders held productive talks during which the External Affairs Minister stressed that the establishment of a resident Indian embassy will take our ties to a higher level. The two sides discussed expanding trade and investment, growing our development partnership, increasing our exchanges and training, and strengthening our political cooperation. Dr. Jaishankar asserted that Paraguay has been a steadfast partner at multilateral forums. He said that our shared commitment to a rules-based order and to democratic values will continue motivating us to work closely. Now, Dr. Jaishankar also earlier began his day by paying homage at the National Pantheon of Heroes, and he recognized the sacrifices of those who have served this country.
Well, for more on the story, we've got Amritpal Singh joining us this morning on Breakfast News. Amritpal, take us through the significance of the External Affairs three-nation South American visit in the first place.
Well, this is the first Affairs Minister to Latin America, and yes, from the standpoint that its relationship forward for creative trade, investment,
Well, clearly this particular visit by External Affairs Minister, the three-nation visit that he is going to do, it's a three-nation official visit that he is going to do, which includes Paraguay, as Samriddhi was mentioning. There is also Argentina and Brazil on the table from the 22nd to the 27th of this month. So it's a three-nation South American visit that the External Affairs Minister is taking. There are many bilateral engagements with his counterparts, and the External Affairs Minister is also expected to call on the top leadership in all the three countries and looking at reviewing the bilateral relationship in different sectors, also discussing regional and global issues of common interest. This is what the MEA said in a statement. Also, one needs to note that Brazil and Argentina are strategic partners of India. The External Affairs Minister is also expected or scheduled to deliver an address in an institute in the Brazilian Diplomatic Academy in Brazil. So clearly this is a 6-day visit to three nations that the External Affairs Minister is going to do. Important things on the agenda, especially when it comes to taking that bilateral relations with South American nations forward. Ahead of this particular visit to the three South American nations, the External Affairs Minister had met with envoys of Latin America and Caribbean countries with a focus on boosting the overall bilateral ties, especially between India and the South American nations. So clearly very much important things on the agenda. We've got our correspondent Amrit Pal once again joining us on Breakfast News. Amrit, take us through the significance of this 6-day three-nation South American visit by the External Affairs Minister. Well, I think we'll leave it there. I think there is some technological issues that we are facing in patching that particular live with our correspondent Amritpal Singh. Time for us to head into a short breather here. On the other side,
And now let's move on to our next section where we bring you all the news from across the globe.
Well, as Germany bids its transition to green resources or green sources of energy to replace Russian gas imports, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is set to sign a historic hydrogen supply deal with Canada. German Chancellor, who was on a two-day visit to Canada, met the country's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Monday. The two leaders said Russia's conflict with Ukraine is bringing Canada and Germany closer together, with Canada seeking to boost energy and critical mineral exports to Germany. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that the country is exploring ways to see if there is a business case to export liquefied natural gas directly to Europe from its east coast. While German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that Russia is no longer a reliable partner, he also reaffirmed the commitment to contribute to the global supply of energy by increasing capacities in the short term.
Situation in the short term, where we will do what we can to contribute to the global supply of energy by increasing our capacities in the short term, and explore ways to see if it makes sense to export LNG, and if there's a business case for it, to export LNG directly to Europe. And that's something that economic conversations are going on between businesses in Canada and in Germany. But in the medium term and long term, Canada can and will position itself to be a key supplier of energy to the world in a net zero economy.
Russia, of course, is trying to drive a wedge into the international community and those who have joined ranks to support Ukraine. And so I would like to expressly thank Canada for making it possible to overhaul and return the turbine to Germany. It's now in Germany. It's ready to be used, and this decision was an important one because it debunked Putin's game. His strategy was to divide partners and allies and to divide us in our support for Ukraine. But we were able to show that Russia is no longer a reliable business partner. It has reduced gas supply to all of Europe, always, allegedly because of technical problems that do not exist. So it's important that we do not fall into Putin's trap and that we stand together.
Well, updates now on the killing of Daria Dugin. Ukraine has dismissed the Russian claims of Kiev being responsible for the killing of Daria Dugin, the daughter of Russian President Vladimir Putin's key aide. Ukraine's Azov regiment has denied the claims that it killed the daughter of Russian ultra-nationalist Alexander Dugin.
They are linking Azov battalion to this for a reason. I won't be surprised if tomorrow testimonies beaten out during interrogations come out from my friends. Testimonies signed under the tortures that they know this woman whose surname is Vavok or other things. They will try to imitate the court proceedings for the public. But if you have critical thinking skills, just imagine that they already know the conclusion. They want to come to and will try to add facts of low quality to get to that conclusion.
Meanwhile, in Moscow, flowers were laid and candles lit on Monday in a makeshift memorial for Daria Dugin. She was killed last week when a bomb blew up the Land Cruiser she was driving near Moscow. She is the daughter of Russian ultra-nationalist Alexander Dugin. Alexander has long been an advocate of united Russia.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky yet again called for Russia to be recognized as a terrorist state. Speaking in his nightly address, Volodymyr Zelensky slammed Russia for taking lives during its ongoing conflict with Ukraine. Meanwhile, the United Nations on Monday said that over 5,500 civilians have been killed in the war. Russo-Ukraine conflict continues even as the war set to complete 6 months on August 24th. Ukraine's completion of 6 months of the battle coincides with its Independence Day, that is also on the 24th of August. Kiev banned public celebrations this week to commemorate independence from Soviet rule, citing a heightened threat of Russian attack.
Meanwhile, US officials discourage former American pro basketball player Dennis Rodman's reported plan to travel to Russia to seek the release of American basketball star Brittany Griner. The US State Department spokesman Ned Price said if Rodman travels to Russia, he would not be on behalf of the US government. Ned Price also warned that Dennis Rodman's trip could complicate and hinder the ongoing diplomatic efforts to secure the release of Griner and former US Marine Paul Wellman, who was sentenced in 2020 to 16 years in jail for spying. The US State Department also warned Americans and issued travel advisories warning Americans not to travel to Russia.
I want to be clear, he would not be traveling on behalf of the U.S. government. I've just reiterated what we've said now for the past several weeks. We put forward a substantial proposal to Russia to seek the freedom of Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner. We believe that anything other than negotiating further through the established channel is likely to complicate and hinder those release efforts. We've also provided very clear guidance to American citizens owing to a number of threats, not the least of which is the threat of wrongful detention, that Americans should not travel to Russia. That has been our message to private Americans across the board.
Now, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief says he hopes for US response as early as this week to an European Union proposal on Iran nuclear deal, adding that answer from Iran to European Union proposal on nuclear deal was reasonable. The proposal follows 16 months of indirect US-Iranian talks with the European Union. Iran and 6 major world powers had reached a historic deal in 2015, lifting sanctions imposed by the US, European Union and United Nations in return for Iran agreeing to long-term curbs on its nuclear program. However, the then US President Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the agreement and said he would reimpose economic sanctions on Tehran. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell said on Monday that a response from Iran to the European Union's latest proposal on a nuclear deal with the US was reasonable. Borrell was referring to a response sent last week by Iran to the latest proposal of the European Union for updating a 2015 nuclear deal with Tehran after 16 months of indirect US-Iranian talks.
There was a proposal from me as the coordinator of the negotiations, and a response from Iran that I considered reasonable. It was transmitted to the United States, which has not yet responded formally.
On August 15, United States State Department had said that Iran must abandon extraneous demands if it is to reach a nuclear deal. State Department spokesperson Ned Price told a briefing that US will provide its views on the European Union's final draft to save a 2015 nuclear deal privately and directly to the bloc's High Representative Josep Borrell.
We will do that with the unity that we have been able to restore over the course of the past 18 months or so. With our European allies, with other partners around the world, and with the broad international consensus we've managed to forge regarding the need to deal with Iran's nuclear provocations.
Iran's foreign policy on Monday said that the United States had not yet responded to the proposals of the European side in indirect talks aimed at reinstating Tehran's 2015 nuclear deal. Foreign Ministry spokesperson also said relatively good progress was made.
The American government has not yet responded to the proposals of the European side. In general, I can say that we have made relatively good progress so far. We cannot say that we have reached a nuclear agreement until all issues are agreed upon.
On Sunday, White House said that President Biden spoke with President Emmanuel Macron of France, Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany and Prime Minister Boris Johnson of United Kingdom.
The leaders discussed the situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. They also discussed ongoing negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, the need to strengthen support for partners in the Middle East region, and joint efforts to deter and constrain Iran's destabilizing regional activities. Iran and 6 major world powers had reached a historic deal on July 14, 2015, lifting sanctions imposed by the United States, European Union and United Nations in return for Iran agreeing to long-term curbs on its nuclear program. However, then United States President Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the agreement and said he would reimpose economic sanctions on Tehran immediately. On August 4th this year, the indirect talks between Tehran and Washington had resumed in Vienna with a meeting between Iran's chief nuclear negotiator and the European Union's Enrique Mora, who coordinates the talks aimed at salvaging a 2015 nuclear deal. The European Union's foreign policy chief Josep Borrell had warned there is no room left for further major compromises. DD India.
Well, former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan criticized what he said was the absence of the rule of law in the country. Imran Khan's supporters gathered in front of Imran Khan's house to prevent police from taking him into custody on anti-terrorism charges stemming from a weekend televised speech. In his speech, Imran Khan named the police chief and the judge involved in the case against his aide, saying he was going to sue them. Police filed charges against Imran Khan over what he said was a threat in the speech, in which he spoke about police torture of an aide who faces sedition charges for inciting mutiny in the military. Police cited that comment in a report, saying the purpose of the speech was to spread terror amongst the police and the judiciary and prevent them from doing their duty. According to Imran Khan's attorney, Bawar Awam, court granted Imran 3 days of pre-arrest bail later in the day, after which the demonstrators started to disperse.
And now an update on the Florida Parkland trial. A defense attorney implored a Florida jury to spare the life of Nicholas Cruz, who killed 17 people in a 2018 high school mass shooting in the city of Parkland, citing brain damage linked to fetal drug and alcohol exposure as the reason not to impose the death penalty. Prosecutors wrapped their case 2 weeks ago, concluding with heart-wrenching testimony from people who lost loved ones and a visit to the school building where the shooting took place. McNeil said she should present witnesses, including people who knew him and medical experts, during a trial in which jurors must decide whether to sentence him to death or to life in prison without possibility of a parole.
Well, staying with shootings there, during a press conference, Atlanta Police Department say that the shooting suspect was taken into custody at the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. A photo of the woman believed to be the shooter was tweeted by a passenger who had just arrived at the airport. Atlanta police also say that the 2 people are dead and the condition of the 3rd victim is unknown at this time. Atlanta Police Department said it was trying to determine whether the victims were targeted by the suspect or shot at randomly. Police also said that the passengers at Atlanta's airport were never in danger and security was never compromised, and they also recovered the gun they believe was used in the triple shooting.
Now, the streets of La Paz, Bolivia, witnessed a clash between coca growers and Bolivian police on Monday as homemade dynamite and tear gas flew through the streets of the city. The protest, which started on the 1st of August, stemmed from a long-lasting quarrel between 2 cocoa producer groups, Los Yungas producers, who took La Paz's streets, and a government-backed coca group growers led by Arnold Alanis. Producers from Los Yungas demanded the government close down what they deem is an illegal coca market.
Well, Brazil's presidential frontrunner Lula da Silva said on Monday that his country does not need to cut a single tree to plant more soybean, sugarcane or raise cattle, as Silva has vowed to restore law enforcement in the Amazon rainforest to curb deforestation. While talking to a news agency, he also said that with foreign collaboration, keeping a tree standing in the Amazon could be worth more than any other investments. Meanwhile, Silva's remark came as a news agency reported last week that advisors to the leftist former president were proposing subsidized green farm loans to spur the planting of soya bean and corn on open pasture and reduce deforestation in the Amazon.
And now an update on the Afghanistan flash floods. The natural calamity has now left 20 dead over the last 48 hours. According to officials on Monday, heavy rain has also destroyed thousands of homes and has damaged agricultural land as well. Meanwhile, the Taliban government, which took over the country last August, has struggled to cope with the disasters and has called for assistance. Whereas the country has been reeling from natural disasters this year, including a drought and a massive earthquake that killed over 1,000 people in June.
Heavy rains has flooded the areas in Texas on Monday, submerging roads and entire neighborhoods, trapping some residents in their swam vehicles and homes. Meanwhile, Dallas metropolitan area of Texas have already prompted evacuations on Monday due to the flooding caused by the heavy downpour. Whereas in Bal Springs, to the east of Dallas, firefighters rescued families from flooded homes surrounded both by standing water and swift currents. On the other hand, Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins has declared a state of disaster in Dallas County, triggering a request for state and federal assistance on Monday. The National Weather Service have also issued a flood watch and warned of further showers and thunderstorms until at least Wednesday.
Now, in a recent update on the 10 miners who were trapped in a flooded coal mine 19 days ago in Mexico, hit another setback as underground water levels have surged higher. Now, informing more on the matter, Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador in a press conference said that another sinkhole from a neighboring flooded mine had opened up, causing water levels to rise once again. The surge came from the nearby Conquist Norte mine, which was closed due to flooding in the year 1996. Meanwhile, engineers are pumping water out of Pinabet while working on sealing off the nearby Conquist Norte mine, where water that has accumulated for more than 25 years is now rushing into Pinabet due to the underground tunnel collapse. The miners became confined to underground at the Pinabet mine in the border state of Coahuila on August 3rd, when their excavation work led to a tunnel wall to collapse and unleashed flooding.
Meanwhile, Spain is finally getting relief from its series of wildfires as firefighters have managed to stabilize the wildfire on Sunday that has ravaged vast swaths of land in eastern Spain, allowing officials to lift all remaining evacuation orders. The blaze, which started on Monday near Beges in the eastern Valencia region, has destroyed over 20,000 hectares of land and spurred the evacuation of around 2,200 people. Firefighters said reduced winds, cooler overnight temperatures and higher humidity levels have allowed them to contain the blaze. According to the regional interior minister, Gabriela Bravo, preliminary survey flights on Sunday showed it no longer had any active fronts and can be considered stabilized.
And now an update on the global COVID numbers. COVID-19 cases have now crossed 60 crore and the number of recoveries from the disease stand above 57 crore 58 lakh, while the virus has claimed 64 lakh 73,000 lives worldwide. The US continues to remain worst affected by registering the highest number of COVID-19 cases in the world. The country's COVID case tally remains above 9 crore 54 lakh, whereas the number of fatalities from the disease have been logged is above 10 lakh 65,000. Looking at Europe, France recorded the maximum number of cases by reporting more than 3 crore 43 lakh cases, whereas Germany and United Kingdom stand second and third in the list. Germany has reported over 3 crore 18 lakh and UK recorded over 2 crore 34 lakh COVID-19 cases so far. They are followed by Italy, which has reported above 2 crore 16 lakh cases of the disease.
Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the top US infectious disease official who became the face of America's COVID-19 pandemic response under President Donald Trump and Joe Biden, announced on Monday that he is stepping down in December after more than 5 decades of public service. Dr. Fauci, whose efforts to fight the pandemic were applauded by many public health experts, will be leaving his post as chief medical advisor to President Joe Biden and director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, a part of the National Institute of Health. Dr. Fauci has served under 7 U.S. presidents, beginning with Republican Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, focusing on newly emerging and re-emerging infectious disease threats, including HIV/AIDS, Ebola, Zika, monkeypox, and COVID-19.
New York, the epicenter of the monkeypox outbreak in the United States, announced that it will switch up its vaccination method in an effort to get more people protected. More than 90% of all cases in the US have been identified in New York City, and the biggest challenge with combating the virus has been a shortage of vaccination doses. Now, at a briefing, New York State Health Commissioner Dr. Mary Bassett announced a change to the way the state administers the monkeypox vaccine. US Food and Drug Administration has authorized injecting a monkeypox vaccine intradermally in adults, meaning between layers of the skin rather than below the skin, in an effort to stretch out low vaccine supplies. While Spain and Britain have also approved the use of smaller doses of the monkeypox vaccine following the European Medicines Agency decision last week to allow dose sparing.
Well, time now for us to head into a short breather. On the other side, we'll be getting you all the business and sports updates. Stay tuned with DD India and Breakfast News.
The changing world of news. Headlines that you wake up to. News that shapes your day. Stories that matter to you. The latest and most accurate updates. A fresh start to a new day. The Breakfast News, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. on DD India.
And it's time for us to now move on to our next segment, BizBuzz.
Well, starting first up with US stocks, Wall Street ended sharply lower on Monday as investors fretted about a US Federal Reserve gathering later this week that is expected to reinforce a strong commitment by the central bank to stamp out inflation. Meanwhile, focus is on Fed Chair Jerome Powell's speech on Friday at the central bank's conference in Jackson Hole for further cues on how aggressively the Fed is likely to be with the future interest rate hikes. According to economists, the Fed will probably raise interest rates by 50 basis points in September.
Going into Friday, I think we'll be able to tell how the week is going to play out, because we do have Powell speaking at Jackson Hole at 10 a.m. And so I think that's going to really be the litmus test in terms of how did the week play out. I know it's later in the week, but I think that's what would be a better thing to compare in terms of how the markets are actually responding.
The S&P 500 lost 2.14%, while the Nasdaq Composite lost 2.55%, whereas the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 1.91%. Well, time now to get you all the latest from the world of sports in Sports Track. Well, big news coming in, rather a bad one from the world of sports. Indian tennis legend Sania Mirza has pulled out of the upcoming US Open due to an injury. Making the announcement on social media, Sania said, "Hi guys, a quick update. I have some not so great news. I hurt my forearm, that's elbow, while playing in Canada 2 weeks ago, and obviously didn't realize how bad it was until I got my scans yesterday." and unfortunately I have in fact torn a little bit of my tendon. She added, I will be out for weeks and I pulled out of the US Open. This isn't ideal and it's terrible timing and it will change some of my retirement plans, but I will keep you posted. Well, exactly not plans. She had earlier made an announcement that she is going to retire post the final Grand Slam of the year, the US Open 2022. So this particular injury there making a bit of change in her plans. She said that the retirement is still not happening, but she's going to change and alter her plans a bit. So we'll have to wait and watch on what could be the confirmation that is coming with regards to the retirement that Sania Mirza has, especially when it comes to giving up the sport, as she's been a former world #1 in women's doubles. She's won the Australian Open, the Wimbledon and the US Open once each in women's doubles event. She's also won the Australian Open, the French Open, the US Open in the mixed doubles event. So she was also a losing semi-finalist in the 2016 Rio Olympic Games. So there are many things that she would be looking forward to, especially when it comes to signing off from the Grand Slams on a high. But this injury that she has got to her elbow clearly jeopardizing some of the plans that she had for the year to end it on a high, and she would now be refocusing on first of all getting back fit and then taking a call on her retirement.
And that's right, that's a terrible news coming in right there, breaking that Sania Mirza will be in fact pulling out of the US Open due to that injury. Meanwhile, the final Grand Slam of this year, which is the US Open, starts next Monday with 6-time champion Serena Williams and the major draw card. The American great, who turns 41 in September, is set to play her last tournament in New York after recently announcing she is evolving away from tennis. The 23-time Grand Slam champion could sign off her glittering career by equaling Margaret Court's all-time major record of 24 with victory at Flushing Meadows. Teenager Emma Raducanu is back to defend her title after her stunning success in 2021. The world #11 got the better of Williams 6-4, 6-0 at the Cincinnati Masters last week before being knocked out in the round of 16. World #1 Iga Swiatek will also provide a stiff challenge as she looks to add to her French Open success this year. Now in the men's tournament, some of the headline acts include defending champion Daniil Medvedev, 22-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal, Wimbledon finalist Nick Kyrgios and rising star Carlos Alcaraz. One player unlikely to be there is Serbian Novak Djokovic, who will not be allowed into the United States unless he can provide proof of a COVID vaccination. The draw for the US Open is on Thursday.
Well, time now to get your updates from the world of cricket, where India beat Zimbabwe by 13 runs in the third ODI to complete a 3-0 Swedish sweep in Harare on Monday. Shubman Gill struck a stroke-filled century to power India to 289 for 8. In reply, Zimbabwe's innings ended at 276 in 49.3 overs, thanks to Sikandar Raza's brilliant 95 ball 115. Earlier coming into bat at number 3, Gill smashed 130 of 97 with the help of 15 boundaries and 1/6 after India opted to bat first. Besides Gill, Ishan Kishan made 50 while Shikhar Dhawan scored 40. Brad Evans picked up his maiden 5-wicket haul for the hosts.
Indian women duo of Gayatri Gopichand and Trisha Jolly entered the second round of the BWF World Championships underway in Tokyo. The duo defeated Malaysian pair of Lo Yin Yuan and Valerie Seo 21-11, 21-13 in the round of 64.
Well, Manchester United produced an outstanding display to defeat Liverpool and give manager Erik ten Hag his first Premier League victory at a thunderous Old Trafford. Ten Hag took the bold decision to drop captain Harry Maguire and Cristiano Ronaldo and was rewarded with a performance that lifted the mood of the crisis around Manchester United and leave Liverpool still searching for the first win of the season. Jadon Sancho showed superb control and composure to deservedly put United in front after 16 minutes before Marcus Rashford raced clear to beat Alisson from substitute Anthony Martial's pass 8 minutes after the break. Mohamed Salah set up a tense finish when he scrambled in a header with 9 minutes left on the clock, but United survived to give Ten Hag just the sort of triumph he needed to make his mark at Old Trafford.
And now it's time for us to look at today's weather forecast. Heavy to very heavy rainfall at isolated places, very likely over Rajasthan and Gujarat region, and heavy rainfall at isolated places over West Madhya Pradesh, the Gangetic West Bengal, Odisha, Assam and Meghalaya, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram and Tripura, Saurashtra and Kutch, coastal and south interior Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Karaikal, in Kerala and Mahe. Thunderstorm accompanied with lightning at isolated places, very likely over Himachal Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal and Sikkim, Odisha, Assam and Meghalaya, south interior Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Karaikal, and Kerala and Mahe. And now let's take a look at the maximum and minimum temperature across the nation.
Well, that's it. We have time in this edition of Breakfast News. But remember, this particular world is not changed by is changed by your example and not by your opinion. So follow that particular dream. And what do we have as watch out today this morning?
Well, before we end this edition of Breakfast News, we leave you with a glimpse of adorable wild elephants enjoying a bath in nature reserve. Take a look. News continues on DD India. Do stay tuned in. Namaskar.
Well, enjoy the good Samaritans of the jungle. Bye for now.